On this week's episode of Nosebleed Radio, we welcome on Alex Daugherty of On the Forecheck. We talk with him about the Nashville Predators and their series with the Winnipeg Jets. Before we get into the interview, we talk a little NHL playoffs ourselves, along with some NBA playoffs. We wrap up the show with our final thoughts. So without further ado, roll the music.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
You're listening to Nosebleed Radio. Here's your host, Tucker Franklin.
What is up? Episode 13 of Nosebleed Radio is up and running. I'm here with the boys via Skype. Kieran Brennan.
How's it going?
Toby Todd.
What's up?
And Shane Miller.
Hey, how's it going, Roll Hawks?
Like I said earlier, episode 13, we're going to talk about our favorite number 13s. So, Kieran, you want to kick us off with those?
Yep, I'm going to go with one of my favorite basketball players of all time, and that's Mr. Steve Nash.
Okay.
He's the Steve Nash, the Canadian wonder. If he was from Manitoba, he could be the Manitoba Miracle. That'd be an opening name.
Ooh.
And my other favorite 13 is Mr. Omar Vizquel, the smoothest hands in baseball. Did you know that when he won 11 gold gloves and posted a 985 career fielding percentage?
I did not know that.
He also
impressive.
holds the record for most double plays turned at shortstop. So that's pretty cool.
He's pretty
That's
slick.
pretty impressive.
Shane, what are your famous number 13s?
I've only got one this week. It is everyone's favorite grocery bagger, Kurt Warner, Super Bowl champion, back before Kieran was a Rams fan. Sorry about that. But great story. You went through University of Northern Iowa, not real big name there. Went to play arena ball, was bagging groceries, and then came out with a Super Bowl ring. So that's pretty cool. Pretty neat.
0 to hero.
Yeah.
All right, Toby, who are your famous number 13s?
I'm also going basketball for my 13s. I've got two guys from the NBA. My favorite NBA player, James Harden. They play the Jazz. Going to win that series, hopefully take down the Warriors next round. My guy, Marcus Morris, former Jayhawk, now on the Celtics, tearing it up. And then I've got to go big number 13 from the University of Michigan. National runners-up this year. Amazing run, Moritz Wagner from Germany. Best of luck to him in the upcoming NBA draft, and there you have it. Those are the big 13s for me.
Are you a little mad he's leaving?
No, because we can't do better than we did this year, and him personally can't outdo what he did this year, being named to the all Big Ten team and everything. So he's put himself in the best position to be drafted right now. So I don't blame him for going.
So I guess that just leaves me with my 13s. I got two 13s. My first one is Salvador Perez. Can't get any better than that at the catching position. He's the greatest catcher in the game right now. Subtle jab at Kieran and Yadier Molina.
Not the
you
best
can
luggage
believe what
carrier.
you want, but you're wrong.
Probably one of the worst luggage carriers in the MLB, though.
Not a great one. Yadier Molina is probably a better luggage carrier. I will give him that.
Nice durability, Salvador.
Okay. I don't think you should be talking about Yadier Molina and durability. But it's okay. I'll move on.
Let's look it up.
My next number 13 is Nick Bonino, center for the Nashville Predators. Also a number 13. If you add 7 and 6, it's 13. That's PK Subban, number 76. So that's my honorable mention.
Now you can't use him for episode 76 when that happened. So way to go, Tucker.
No, that's honorable mention.
Okay, fine. Honorable mention.
Since we're talking about...
No A-Rod.
Nah, screw A-Rod.
No A-Rod 13s.
I was never a big A-Rod guy.
Yeah,
I point that out. The Anti-Yankees podcast does not give a shout-out to A-Rod on episode 13.
Well, you just did.
I'm shouting out Mariners A-Rod. Mariners and Rangers A-Rod.
I'm showing not Yankees, Rangers A-Rod.
So we got the good A-Rods covered.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and move on to NHL playoffs. Toby's Sharks are kind of in a shootout with the Knights here, putting up a little fight. What do you think, Toby?
Well, this has been a really fun series to watch. Shane and I, we were in Maryville. We watched the Game 2 victory the Sharks had in double overtime. You know, the Knights had that. It was super fun. It was a really long hockey game. The Knights had that disallowed goal in overtime. Sharks came back, scored the game winner in double OT. We had another overtime game, game 3. That was a heartbreaker because we produced so many chances, and our skaters have outplayed the Knights skaters. It's really not even close by how much better the Sharks skaters have been than the Knights skaters in this series. But Marc-Andre Fleury, he's playing better than any goalie in the NHL right now. All the chances that the Sharks get seem to just be completely thwarted as soon as they go on net because Marc-Andre Fleury's playing such an amazing game.
Toby, do you have anything else about the Sharks?
That's pretty much it. Fleury's just had our number.
Fleury's a stud, man. Fleury's a stud. We talked about it last week, that he's not a guy you get in an expansion draft. And
No, they got so lucky with that.
yeah,
It's unreal.
the expansion draft rules in the NHL need to change, and that's just what it comes down to. And the crazy thing is when Seattle becomes a team, they're going to change so Vegas doesn't have to give up their players, which is not doesn't make any sense to me.
Seattle's going to get shafted, and they're not going to perform as well as Vegas did, and we'll just be like, what's wrong with Seattle? Like,
yeah. Well, it's wild because, like, the whole storyline is, like, this is the first team to ever, like, go to the playoffs in their inaugural year and, like, actually be probably one of the favorites to go to the Stanley Cup right now coming out of the West. But it's, like, it's not like this is a bunch of ragtag guys who came out. Like, they call themselves, like, what was it, the Golden Misfits or whatever they're saying, the Las Vegas Misfits. Like, that's bullshit. Like, Marc-Andre Fleury is probably the best goalie in the NHL, like, especially the way he's playing right now. They're not misfits. These aren't guys that have no experience. They're not scrubs. These are guys who have been to the Stanley Cup and know what they're doing.
We'll talk Preds and Jets series later with our guest, Adam Daugherty. But as of right now, let's move it to the Eastern Conference. Pins and Caps going on. That's a good series. Caps got the lead.
This has been a lot better series than I thought it was. Did you guys see Ovechkin's the game winner yesterday? Or I guess this would be Tuesday when this comes out on Friday. When it like just kind of bounced over. Yeah. That was incredible.
Ovechkin's a stud.
He did the tap out of the air like Sidney Crosby did those last few regular season games. And everybody was making a big deal about it. And it finally came back to beat the Penguins.
I really, really hope the Capitals can pull it out and beat the Penguins this year. I hate the Penguins more than any other team in the NHL right now because they're so good and they're in our division, so we always have to lose to them whenever we play them. But I really hope the Capitals can find a way to beat them. It's just too depressing to watch them lose to them every single year in the playoffs. We need something new to happen here.
And you know the series is going to go 7, too, because it always does.
Oh, sure. It always goes 7.
So they do this all the time. They take these leads over the Penguins, and eventually just comes to bite them in the ass. They get their hopes up, and they end up losing it anyway. So I'm thinking it's more of the same. They'll just lose it in 7. I'm going to have that taken until proven otherwise.
I think Ovechkin just got all of Washington's hopes up just to shit on him again here in a little bit.
I hate Sidney Crosby, though.
I hate Sidney Crosby so much.
The play of Tom Wilson, who's out here just absolutely destroying Pens players. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with that, but he had that hit on some fourth liner for the Penguins. Broke his jaw, gave him a concussion, all that. That's the kind of stuff that you really, you hate to see it from an aspect of players getting hurt, but you really, really like to see it from the standpoint of, okay, the Capitals are not going to back down for the Penguins this year.
Yep.
You see Ovechkin, in years past, he's been criticized for not doing anything. Yesterday, he scores that game-winning goal. He lets the fans hear about it. I don't know if you saw him yelling the entire way over, to the board when he jumped in.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, you're seeing something a little bit different, I think, from the Capitals just early on in this series. But at the same time, you understand that, okay, they're playing the Penguins. This is a team who's had their number. This is a team who's not going to get frazzled by being down in a series. So you like what you see from the Capitals more so this series than in any other, but I agree with Kieran. At the same time, they got to prove me wrong because you'd still say the Pens are probably favorites at this point.
I agree.
I saw this tweet today talking about how Sidney Crosby's a scumbag, which when he shoved PK Subban's face in the ice in the NHL did absolutely nothing. Someone quote tweeted that gift and said, if the Golden Boy does it, Pittsburgh says it's just hockey. When they get hit, they call the commissioner to help them, which I think has some truth to it.
I do too, but I think that happens in any sport almost too. I feel like that's not just something exclusive to hockey. Tom Brady has literally had rules enforced just because it happened to him. Like, we all remember the Tuck rule against the Raiders that had never been called once before that. And then it happens to Tom Brady. Like, well, if you look back in the rule book, it's actually always been here. We just never call it. The leagues want to keep their star players happy because they're the ones that bring in money. So they're not going to punish Sidney Crosby for that because they know if they piss him off, who knows what's next after that. They don't want him to run away. They want to keep him happy. They want to bite the hand that feeds them.
And we see leagues where that's come to like bite the league in the ass because like in the NBA, that's a players' league now. I feel like the commissioner and them, they have no control over that at all. One of the scandals, didn't one of the former NBA referees come out and say like, yeah, a lot of these games, like the refs can take control of them at any second if they see something the league doesn't like. I thought I heard a podcast talking about that. Yeah. But like we saw like LeBron just getting like flopping all over the place, and then whenever getting like so many calls that weren't being reciprocated the other game. So it's like in Game 7 against the Pacers, and so it's just like, okay, the league's kind of taking control of this one to keep LeBron happy. Yep. Which I mean, kind of what you got to do, you know.
You got to realize like it's a business first. They have to make sure they're making their money. I might be just like a cynical view of it, but like every one of these leagues is a business. They're multi-million-dollar corporations, so they're not going to put themselves in jeopardy by pissing off their best assets.
That being said, I don't mind the like really physical play, and I wouldn't mind seeing the Capitals send some of the no-name guys out there. You know, like maybe not like Ovechkin to attack Crosby, but try to rattle the star players a little bit because like you see in other sports, like that's a big part of the game for the other teams when they know that guys are going to get calls. They say, all right, get the calls, but we're going to have them rattle a little bit, you know. You see how physical defensive backs will play with the star receivers. Like, you see Jalen Ramsey do it to all the receivers he covers. Xavier Rhodes gets in everybody's face in football. I think, like, understanding that calls are going to go to some of the star players and then saying, kind of throwing caution to the wind, saying, we're still going to play the way we usually play. I think that usually helps out those teams that don't have the star players sort of, you know, overcome some of the officiating biases or stuff like that.
No, I agree with you there, too. I think sports are so mental that once you get inside those people's heads like that, where they realize, all right, these guys aren't going to play off me just because they know I'm, like, the star here, it gets in their heads, it throws off their game, throws off their rhythm. So I think that is one of the things the Caps could do to really ensure this does go to 7 games and hopefully help them out in the 7th game.
A majority of these series between the Penguins and Capitals have gone to at least 6 games. So it's not like the Penguins are sweeping them. They're usually really hard-fought series that Capitals just can't finish.
Heartbreakers.
But on terms of like the star players not getting the call, in hockey, that's usually where the enforcer comes in. So if like somebody hurts the star player and he doesn't get the call, then you send out your enforcer to beat the crap out of him.
There's a lot less fights in playoffs, though.
There are a lot less fights, but it's real chippy, too.
Yeah, they do love to get pretty chippy.
They don't fight in the playoffs is because the league has screwed up the fighting system so much. I could talk about this. You guys know that this is one of the topics I feel very strongly about in the NHL is fighting. And I think that because they have that instigator penalty, the minor penalty that puts the other team on the power play if you instigate, that deters teams from wanting to fight and protecting their best players, which is ridiculous. It should be the other way around.
I agree. You end up with more injuries. Like, look at the KHL where they don't allow fighting. You have a lot more injuries there because guys are taking out the team's best player, and there's no repercussions for them.
It's a bloodbath in the KHL. You see guys' heads flying off all over the place.
We should talk about that in another episode, though. We can talk way too long on that topic.
I could do a whole episode about that. But we'll move on to this other series in the Eastern Conference. The final one we have to talk about, Bruins and Lightning, they're all knotted up at 1. Vasilevsky had a night and day difference between Game 1 and Game 2. Shane, you faced them first round. What did you think of the Lightning?
I hate them now. They are, right now, besides the Penguins, my most hated team. They are a really good, really talented team, though. We just couldn't really hang in with them. I think a lot of that has to do with experience. We have, 0 playoff experience, where they have a lot more. Mm-hmm. But that being said, the Bruins are a fantastic team, fantastic hockey team. I predicted them and the Penguins to meet off for the Eastern Conference Finals to get to the Stanley Cup. I really don't think they're going to struggle much more with the Lightning. They just have so much talent on their team, on Boston's side, so much more experience. In the whole season, they've been playing lights-out hockey. They are so fundamentally sound that I don't think the Lightning can really beat them. I think this is kind of the one shot they got at them. I think it'll go 5, maybe 6 games, I think, but I still think the Bruins come out on top.
From a Vasilevsky standpoint, the goalie for the Lightning, from his standpoint, he actually finished with the same number of saves, Game 1, Game 2. Game 1, though, he allowed 6 goals as opposed to 18 shots, which is a 75% save rate, which is horrendous. And you expect a lot better from a goalie that's been in the conversations for, goalie of the year and all these awards. The Bruins only put up 20 shots on goal in Game 2, which is strikingly low for a team that has as much talent as Boston has. DeBrusque has been amazing throughout the playoffs. Marchand is still there, and he's still incredible. Chara's one of the best defenders in the league. And Pasternak, I don't know if he's leading the whole postseason in points. I know he has 18 points through the first 2 series. But really for them, it's just a matter of can they get shots on goal. The more the Bruins possess the puck, the less they'll ask from their defense and less they'll ask from Tuukka Rask. So for them, I think the whole key is you outshoot your opponent. You're probably going to outscore your opponent with the talent they have, the type of offensive weapons that the Bruins possess. The fact that they only had 20 shots on net in Game 2 is a little bit concerning. A team that talented will probably get 30 to 40 every night, and that's just on an average night. I'm excited to see the series shift now from Tampa Bay into Boston because there's nothing better than a raucous Boston playoff crowd. So I'm really excited for those games now in Boston, and I'm looking forward to that series a lot.
This is just a classic case of great defense versus great offense. So,
Yep.
I know Lightning was one of, if not the best offense in the league. And the Bruins are one of, if not the best defense in the league. And so we saw that in Game 1 where Lightning just weren't able to get anything. But I just think this Bruins team is too good to lose. They got Marchand, they got Chara, they got Bergeron, they got Backus, they got all these guys. You could go on and name all these guys that are just studs on their team, Pasternak. And I just don't see them losing. Defense wins championships. We see that all the time in football. About time we see it in hockey too. Yeah. So honestly, I'd be surprised if any of these series don't go to at least 6 games. These are all the best teams in hockey facing off right now. Color me surprised if these series don't go to at least 6 games. I think this one's going to 7, and the winner of it, I agree with Toby. I think the winner of this one will most likely go to the Stanley Cup Finals for the East.
Fair enough. We'll go ahead and move on to the NBA playoffs, where we had a wild day of NBA playoffs yesterday. That would be Tuesday. I actually texted Toby this morning saying that yesterday was just a wild day of basketball. Toby, what did you think of that?
So I kind of saw the Cavaliers and Raptors series coming. These kind of games, the struggling to score at one moment, then struggling to play defense by both teams in the next. The NBA on TNT crew, they pretty much broke it down after the game and everything was said. They said the Raptors couldn't make shots. There was a lid on the rim those last few minutes for the Raptors where they had a lot of really good looks. Nothing went down. It allowed the Cavs to push the game into overtime. If you're the Raptors, you just can't give the Cavs any openings. It's another thing with the Pens and Caps. Some teams just in your head, you can have them on the ropes, but when you don't overcome that team, like even in Game 1, home Game 1, you let this one slide, and the Raptors are probably, I would assume they're drained mentally. You heard DeRozan today talking about we need to be assholes on the court and stuff like that and really man up. I just don't see it happening for the Raptors coming together.
Why the hell wasn't DeRozan taking the last shot? Who took the last shot from? I don't even know who that guy was.
He took the last shot at the end of regulation. Then he took the last shot in overtime.
Why is he the guy getting the ball?
I think people have this stigma that he's clutch because of what he did at Wichita State. I don't think the play was designed to go to Van Vliet. I think the play was designed for DeRozan to get across the lane and pull up for a mid-range jump shot. He got stuck with the ball. I still feel like in that situation, you would have liked to see DeRozan take maybe a fadeaway shot,
Yeah.
Because you just want to put the ball in the hands of your best player. We saw LeBron hit that incredible fadeaway shot to send the game to overtime. Then another one with 0.6 seconds left at the end of regulation was just off the front rim. Otherwise, they would have won it in regulation, You just kind of feel for this Raptors organization because Game 2 now becomes an absolute must-win. You lose that game, and you're out of the series. Swept. That was a really fun game. I hope there's a lot more of those games in store in that series because that was a lot of fun. I love the Drake and Kendrick Perkins beef. That's funny.
I didn't even know Kendrick Perkins was still in the league.
He is so?
Oh, yeah. I didn't know he was on the Cavs either.
I didn't either.
No way.
He was, I heard him yelling. He was leaving the tunnel, and there was video of him going, "This is why they brought me here." was like, to yell at fans, Kendrick. you just gotta retire, my man. Like,
he was in a suit.
He's not beefing with nobody on the Raptors. He's beefing with Drake, who will not step out on the court. I would like to see that someday. Drake step out onto the basketball court to actually play in the game. But the beef there is funny. The beef that happened in the second game between Rondo and Draymond Green, though.
Oh yeah.
In that Pelicans series. Now that was entertaining because
I hate Draymond so much.
I mean, those are a couple.
I love him.
They're going at it. See, Kieran's kind of got the thing going for him where his favorite player, right? He's not his favorite player, but his favorite team's the Warriors. Draymond Green is an asshole, but he's like their asshole, you know?
You need a guy like that when Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and KD only gets like into it on the internet, but like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, they're just like these soft-spoken guys, and so you need a donkey-looking dude like Draymond Green to step in, and so he's the enforcer.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about how NHL has the enforcer rules. He is the enforcer of the NBA, and more teams are going to start designing around that. You know, the Kendrick Perkins, that's why they brought me here. Well, the Warriors have a guy that they brought there who just happens to be really good at basketball and also pisses off everybody else. He gets in their head.
He's a real nut kicker.
He's the Brad Marchand of the Warriors.
Oh, I love Brad Marchand.
Don't get it twisted. Draymond Green's impact on the Warriors is immense because he gets rebounds for him. Yesterday, they left him open for three. He's going to make more three-pointers than Rondo, which seemed to be the strategy for both teams was we're going to let Rondo shoot threes, we're going to let Draymond shoot threes. Draymond's a better shooter than Rajon Rondo is from outside. He can pass the ball. He plays pretty good defense. You can't ask anybody to guard Anthony Davis one-on-one in the NBA, but it's really interesting, though, to watch the Warriors. And we talked about this earlier with the hockey thing, too, about protecting star players. Draymond Green does a really good job of that for the Warriors, protecting the star players. But Draymond Green will also get into it for seemingly no reason at all. I mean, there was a play yesterday where Draymond Green and Anthony Davis both went to the ground after a rebound. Anthony Davis is getting back up to run back down court to try to play defense, which there's basically no point at the pace that game was being played. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're not past half court by the time the ball is, the shot's going up, you're not going to be down there. But Anthony Davis is trying to run back on defense, and Draymond Green wraps his leg up. It's like he's making a tackle. He's, like, falling behind the backfield. He's pulling the running back down. Somehow, Anthony Davis gets called for a foul there, along with Draymond Green. They were given double fouls. But there's just something about watching that Warriors team play where you get really excited. I feel like people who aren't fans of the Warriors, they like to see Steph Curry shoot the ball. They like to see the movement on offense. They like to see the Iguodala lobs, him catching lobs and stuff like that. They like to see old David West throwing down dunks, you know, with those decrepit legs. But it is so tough to watch Draymond Green perform at all if you're not a fan of the Warriors. Because Draymond Green, he talks after every play to every player. It doesn't matter if the player was guarding him. It doesn't matter what's going on. If he's going back down the court, he's going to have stuff to say to every single player. You talk about a guy that wants to protect his star players. I've never seen a guy complain to the officials more than Draymond Green does.
Oh, my God.
Except maybe his teammate Andre Iguodala, who, after every single foul, it's, oh, no, I can't believe you called a foul on me. It's really tough to cheer for a guy like that. And it's really tough to cheer for a team who's, you know, won as frequently as they have. And also on the subject of protecting star players, we saw Steph Curry draw so many fouls yesterday with the, you know, pump fake three, jumping into the guy. The same play happened. I don't know if you guys remember. Me and Shane watched it with one of our buddies, Riley, who's a big Thunder fan. We watched it at his place. Game 6, Paul George does the same move, ball fake, jumps into Gobert, draws contact, puts up the three, he misses. Steph Curry is going to get that call every single time he does it.
Oh, yeah. Every single time.
And you might consider Paul George a star player. He's not a star like Steph Curry is. But sometimes it's tough to watch games happen like that, too. I mean, the Pelicans had 66 points in the paint. The Warriors had 38 points in the paint. But somehow the Warriors are shooting 3 times more free throws than the Pelicans, despite the fact that they're a perimeter shooting team. I mean, Klay Thompson put up 20 shot attempts yesterday. Steph Curry put up, I don't know how many. It seemed like a lot because he was going to the free throw line every single time he pump faked. I think the Pelicans, as a team, they were super feisty yesterday, and I think the fans will be proud of them. But they're going to get swept in this series because their star player seemingly doesn't get the same calls that the Warriors star player gets. That's going to have a huge impact not only on his psyche, but going forward, just points scored at the line for the Warriors.
Also, I don't know if you can still call Paul George a star after that last game against the Jazz. That was pathetic.
Yeah.
He's bad.
I mean,
He said he's out. He said he's leaving OKC.
Yeah, I heard that too, but he should just stop playing basketball. He's bad.
On the subject of protecting star players, Tucker, do you remember last year when I told you that Zaza Pachulia was sent by God to protect Steph Curry from the devil that was Russell Westbrook?
I do remember that, yes. It was
He
dumb.
might be the devil. Did you see him almost punch that fan in the face for putting a
Yeah,
phone
put the phone in his
Utah.
face.
She was probably just saying something like, hey, really good game, Russ. And he was like, we lost. I know it wasn't a good
Yeah,
game.
he was about to punch a Mormon, probably the new chosen people, right in the face.
What if she was just asking him if he wanted a free book? Like, they always carry those things around. What
No,
if she's just like,
out to everybody.
hey, Russ, good game. You want a free book? And he's like, no, I don't read.
You know, they actually have witnesses that confirmed at halftime when Westbrook got mad at one of the Utah fans walking in that same direction.
Yeah.
The fan, he didn't say anything profane. He asked Russell Westbrook, how are your ankles? Because Donovan Mitchell, I think, put him on the floor earlier that game.
He was just genuinely concerned on his
He
his
was
health.
concerned with his physical well-being, and Russell Westbrook almost went into the stands and Ron Artest his ass.
He said, Russell, you look tired. How are your ankles? Do you need an ice pack?
Can I get you some Gatorade?
Speaking of Utah, they're in a series with Houston. Well, they're probably going to get swept.
There's no chance of them coming back for that. James Harden is so good.
But is he too good? Embrace debate.
I'm going to say no. I think
a
he's
great
the
debate.
perfect amount of good. He's
In
the
honor-
perfect amount of good.
In honor of episode 13, I'm going to say he's too good for the Jazz to beat. He's the best all-around offensive player in basketball right now. The Jazz, despite the fact they're my second favorite team, have little to no hope of coming back to win this series. Unless something absolutely drastic happens, say God forbid, a Chris Paul injury or something like that, they can breathe life into this team. But it will set up one hell of a conference championship. I think this will be one of the first times, or actually this will be the first time since Durant joined Golden State, that there will be a team that has a genuine shot of beating the Warriors before they reach the NBA Finals. And that does present itself in the Rockets. And the Rockets have been the best team this entire NBA season. There's been no signs over the course of the playoffs that say that they're diminishing in, the way they play. I think that series it's almost as good as done.
I just realized that me and Toby, since we never really disagree on basketball, this is the only time where one of my teams will beat his team, because my second favorite team is the Rockets, and they're about to beat the shit out of his second favorite team. So just throwing that out there. Quick brag.
Yeah, we're just waiting. Donovan Mitchell's still a rookie.
Did you say that James Harden was the second best, or was the best all-around basketball player, or the best offensive basketball player?
Best all-around offensive basketball player.
I was about to say, have you watched this dude play any defense?
Nope, because
Ever.
it doesn't happen much.
Or have you
Yeah.
ever seen
Yeah.
LeBron James? That guy's pretty good, too.
LeBron's without a doubt greatest NBA player of all time at this point. If you disagree, you're either old or a Lakers fan. But James Harden's offensive game, I used to think that Kevin Durant was the most offensively skilled player in the entire NBA. But I think the way James Harden attacks the rim, the way he can score in transition as well as in the half court, with as minimalistic help as he gets, just the one-on-one isolations, step-back jump shots, there's really nobody that kind of molds a skill set better than James Harden does on the offensive end.
They really set up
James
their
Har-
offense to make James Harden successful, too. They do the high post with shooters on either side of him, so he can either drive the lane and take it to the hoop, or if he needs to, pass it off to one of them, too. So the way their offense is set up really makes him look good.
Right.
James
And then-
Harden is the king of the ISO that looks like it's going nowhere, and then it turns into a three-point.
Yeah.
Oh, man, James, another wasted ISO three-pointer. Let's go play defense. He's unreal when it comes to that.
I agree with the point that Kevin Durant made earlier this year, that offense actually sets up Rocket center Clint Capella for the easiest job in the NBA, which is stand around by the baseline until James Harden or Chris Paul beat their guy off the dribble and then can lob it up to you when help comes. The offensive sets by Mike D'Antoni have never been in question. Even when he was in Phoenix and it was a player Kieran previously mentioned, Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire, Shaquille O'Neal, or whoever it happened to be. The offense was never in question, but it's really going to come down to just who shoots the ball better in that Warriors and Rocket series, which I'm really hoping that series is a good one, because the NBA needs a pretty good series against the Warriors, because they
Warriors have a lot of shooters.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do, but the Rockets match that in terms of shooters.
Do you think Oscar from The Office will be courtside?
Oh, I guarantee he's courtside all the time now. I bet he gets
I
free
sure
tickets.
hope so.
Yeah, he's their State Farm agent.
Yeah, he's rolling in that State Farm cash.
So he's got to be there. They've got that mind power, too. You know, on that commercial where they all talk in their heads.
Yep,
So
that's what's happening. Oscar Martinez is, like, telepathically talking to James Harden on the court because he's sitting up top, you know, where he can see the whole court and everything that's happening. He's pointing out weaknesses from the top straight to James Harden's head.
Yep, the all-10 view.
Yeah, nobody evaluates men better than Oscar, so.
Toby, your favorite team, obviously, as people know if they listen to the podcast, is the Celtics. We thought that they were going to run into a buzzsaw with the Philadelphia 76ers, but they seemed to handle them pretty well. And I texted you after that game got over and said, looks like the Celtics just beat a Sixers team that talent-wise looks better than them, but the Celtics don't have their three best players.
This is kind of just like a PSA for the entire league. It's kind of like a warning. Brad Stevens is...
He's the GOAT.
A lot of people said he's the second best coach to Greg Popovich. I'm going to say that right now, Brad Stevens is the best coach in the NBA. I'm going to say that what he's been able to do, plug and play players, is absolutely spectacular. Because the best player that the Spurs had on their playoff run is probably better than any players that the Celtics can put on the court right now, you know, like health-wise. It's really incredible what the Celtics have been able to do. Terry Rozier was, you know, a third-string point guard coming into the season. And now Terry Rozier looks like, you know, behind LeBron James and DeMar DeRozan, probably the third best player through the Eastern Conference playoffs.
Didn't Terry have, like, the lowest amount of minutes on the court of any Celtic for the first half of the season? And I think he's leading now, isn't he?
Yeah, I would not be surprised. In the postseason, you know, you got to have Terry on the court. Shane Larkin, he gets in there every now and again just to give him a rest. And he hasn't been playing bad either.
No, he was really, really well.
I think you look at this series, and one thing that will kind of get swept under the rug as this series continues is the play of Jason Tatum, the third overall pick in this draft, compared to Philadelphia's first overall pick, Markelle Fultz. Because that was a draft night trade engineered by Danny Ainge, who I'll be writing a blog about, so you've got to check that out. Danny Ainge engineered that, got the player that we wanted anyway, gave up that number one pick to the 76ers, got more picks on top of that to strengthen the team, you know, over the course of the year. We also got our monetary value back, which enabled us to purchase players like Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving.
Do you remember how pissed people were when Danny Ainge made those trades, though? And people were not happy when that happened.
I remember being upset draft night when we got rid of KG and Paul Pierce to Brooklyn.
Yeah, I was too.
You guys robbed Brooklyn blind.
We're about to rob the Sixers blind, too, honestly. And you look at a player like Tatum, and I just watched Game 1, and basketball skill-wise, there wasn't a player on the court that was more skilled than Jason Tatum is. And he turned 20 in March. You know,
I'm too old.
He was better, you know, maybe besides Terry Rozier, was the best player on the entire court that night. What Ben Simmons has been showing all season, Jason Tatum showed in that game and then some, with the ability to step out, hit jump shots, just do everything on the court, something that not Simmons, not Embiid, none of the 76ers players can claim. And we got him with the third pick in the NBA draft. I mean, the Lakers and 76ers have to be sick to their stomachs watching Jason Tatum play in these playoffs, knowing that they passed on that to get Markelle Fultz, an injury-prone point guard, who, you know, he had one good game in garbage time minutes in the final game of the regular season. And Lonzo Ball, who was, you'd say was a disappointment just because the Lakers fans made him sound coming into the league. I would say he had an average year.
Can we all agree on something, though? Like, Ben Simmons is not a rookie, right? He got paid for a whole year of being an NBA player. That's not a rookie.
I like the analogy that Donovan Mitchell made, where he said, you have a year to study for a test. You're going to do pretty well on that test if you take everything apart and you study that. Whereas, you know, everybody else is coming in with the same test prep. You just give, like, somebody the final at the end of the year. You say, hey, study this all the way through. This is what's going to be on the final. As opposed to somebody who doesn't know what that final is going to look like going in and taking the test. That guy's going to have an advantage. And
big advantage.
When you're around your teammates, which he was all of last season, he was around all of his teammates. He got to train with NBA players. He got to know his coach. I think that an argument could genuinely be made that Ben Simmons is not a true rookie. Well, he's certainly not a true rookie. I don't know.
I know Tucker and I are big baseball guys, and so like we have a certain viewpoint to this because in baseball, if you're a player, you can play a certain amount of baseball games, but as long as you don't pass that benchmark, the next season you can be considered a rookie. So Ben Simmons, like in I know, and at least my point of view, he didn't play any games last year, so technically, I guess he's a rookie. Because in baseball, I don't know the exact number of games, but like you can get called up and play a certain amount of games, and then the next season is considered your rookie season.
I think baseball is different though because the best players get drafted, then they go to like the minors for a little bit, and then they'll eventually get called up. Maybe they get called up for a few games and set back down. Like that doesn't happen in basketball. If you're the best player, you get drafted and you start playing right away. That's your rookie. You know what I mean? When Ted was talking about like letting them sit on the bench for a year and like learn everything, that's the same thing we talk about with quarterbacks. Like we want them to learn under a good quarterback for a year before they take over the role as a starter. So you don't call that guy a rookie after he learned under like Aaron Rodgers or whoever for a full season, then takes over after that.
In the NBA, it happens occasionally because I know the Warriors, they have a G League team, and they'll call players up and send them down occasionally. So, but not every. I think Toby said this before, and correct me if I'm wrong. But not every team has a G League team.
No, there's only 20.
Maybe the NBA will fix that in the future, so like they can be more like baseball and have a more of a developmental system. But I mean, there is opportunities like that in basketball and in baseball.
It's just not as like prominent in basketball.
Yeah, just
baseball.
Not as prominent. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the 76ers have already had something like this where Joel Embiid he missed an entire season, then he came back, and he didn't meet the minimum threshold for games either that put him over rookie status, and so there was a lot of debate for Joel Embiid. He was entering his third NBA season, and people were questioning if he was still a rookie or not. I could see on the letter of the law why Ben Simmons is still a rookie. But, this whole debate is only relevant because of the Rookie of the Year conversation. And this is pretty insane to think about, too, because this is a player who he had a year to sit and watch all these guys. He was the number 1 overall pick coming out of LSU the year before. This year, it was a guy that Mitchell went 13th or 14th overall. Mm-hmm. And by all accounts, Mitchell has done just as much for that Utah Jazz team as Ben Simmons has done for the 76ers. Maybe even more, honestly.
I would argue more.
For the 76ers right now, their best player through this entire postseason has been J.J. Redick. And Donovan Mitchell, we talk about how amazing it was what LeBron was doing. Donovan Mitchell put up some eye-boggling statistics in that first round series. He outplayed guys like Russell Westbrook. He outplayed guys like Paul George and Carmelo Anthony, all of these guys who have had a playoff experience, who are superstars in the league. And he outplayed all those guys. I think that the Rookie of the Year award, it's obviously the only reason we're having this conversation. But at this point, you almost feel bad if Ben Simmons wins it. And I know that's coming from a Celtics perspective. We're playing them in a series right now. But not a true rookie who's, quite frankly, put his team in the exact same spot that Donovan Mitchell has, despite not being their best player.
Well, and Donovan Mitchell had to take on a lot more as a rookie than Ben Simmons did. I mean, when he came in, they lost their best player, Gordon Hayward, so they were missing a huge proponent of their offense, which they kind of relied on him now to fulfill. Where Ben Simmons still has Joel Embiid and J.J. Redick and all those guys too. So I think he's had to do more for the Jazz than Ben Simmons has had to do for the 76ers.
I would agree with that statement. I still think tremendous season by both guys because nobody expected either of these two teams to be in the spots they're in now. But I'd like to see the true rookie win it, especially because of everything we've said. Just that it seems like he has made a bigger impact on his particular team than Ben Simmons has. I also think Ben Simmons is a real smug guy. That shouldn't play into award deciding. Otherwise, Bryce Harper's douchiness would disqualify him from all MVP awards. But yeah, it's almost the same thing for me as watching Draymond Green, where you're like, I just can't cheer for this guy.
I do like the rivalry building between Mitchell and Simmons, though. I think that'll be good to watch for the next few years.
Yeah, I do like that. I like that Donovan Mitchell has been so vocal on social media about it. Mm-hmm. I think that these sort of beefs that are growing, the Tom Wilson hatred in Pittsburgh is going to be really strong now, so I'm excited to see the Pittsburgh fans for that in the NHL. And obviously when guys go to different arenas in the NBA and are booed mercilessly and all that,
yeah,
I think it makes sports fun. I think this is what makes playoff series so exciting. Everybody likes the one-game playoffs because everything's unpredictable, but these series are really, really, really exciting to watch.
We'll go ahead and move on to our interview with Alex Daugherty, writer for On the Forecheck, Nashville Predators blog for SB Nation. We'll talk a little bit of Predators and Jets, so here he is. We're with Alex Daugherty of the Nashville Predator blogger for SB Nation and editor of On the Forecheck blog and host of the Forecheck podcast. Alex, how you doing?
Doing good. How are y'all?
Doing real good.
Doing good.
Good.
You recently came up with a new episode of the Forecheck podcast after the series with the Avs. Tell us a little bit about that show.
Oh, God. I can't even remember. That was like a week ago. I think that was with Megan Sealing, and
Yes.
we talked about, yes. Well, we basically were just breaking down how we thought the Avs series went, and, you know, I think a lot of us did not expect it to go the way it did, but we did kind of have I had the Preds winning in 6, and that's exactly what happened, but so we talked about that, and then we sort of prepped for the Jet series, and as we predicted, it has been very difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
Winnipeg is incredibly good, and the Predators are kind of struggling to figure out how to deal with this. So,
What do you think the biggest difference is in playing the Jets versus the Avalanche has been so far?
I mean, their depth is insane. The Avalanche had the McKinnon line was the big problem against the Avalanche, of course, but it was, you know, if you could handle that line, then you could deal with the bottom 9 basically and sort of keep them in check, but you just can't do that with this group. I mean, the Scheifele line has been incredible. Somehow they've kept Patrick Laine off the score sheet, but
Yeah.
it's only a matter of time. And then the other lines have been good too. So there's nothing really that's been all that good about it. It definitely has not been an easy series so far. And then
Right.
Game 3 was just a disaster. So
Yeah, that one wasn't very good. I can remember watching. We had that 4-goal lead and they just lost it, and that's really frustrating to see, especially when your team is so deep like the Predators and is such a good defensive team. They just didn't play up to their potential.
yeah, I think it was just a 3-goal lead, but it certainly felt like 4.
That's right,
And,
yeah.
it might as well have been 4 because it was gone like instantly. Yeah, it was rough. It was pretty tough. Dustin Byfuglien had like 3 points, and he was just like kind of manhandling the team, the Predators, like in both ends. It was not pretty.
So, what are your thoughts on this series with the Jets so far?
I mean, I still think it could go the distance. My original prediction was Preds in 7. Thought it might go to 7 games. The trend does not suggest that it's going to get that far, but I'm going to stick to it. I think maybe they can pull out a win tonight, and even if they can't, they still got that home game, and then maybe they could pull out a win in Game 6 to force a Game 7. But I think it'll go to 7. I think that they have to respond. They have to find like a level that they just have not been at in the playoffs so far. Part of me thinks like they could just be like kind of mentally exhausted because last year's run was so long, and then they had to go all the way back through it, and they somehow end up winning the President's Trophy out of that, and then now they got to go back through another long series against the second best team in the league. So it's been pretty rough.
Right.
A lot of people, when the playoffs started, had the Predators as like their pick to go to the Stanley Cup final. What do you think? Do you think they thought like the Western Conference was easier? Or do you think that surprised a lot of people coming out of this?
What I was hearing prior to the playoffs was a lot of actually what I heard most was that if the Preds and the Jets meet in the next round, which is what happened, that team would go on to win the Cup.
Right.
That's what I was hearing a lot of, and I guess I'm still hearing that. But I don't know if it's just that. I mean, people definitely forget about the Pacific. I mean, Vegas is just doing nothing but proving everybody that they can still do this. I mean, that series is not over, but I wouldn't be shocked if they come out of the West too. So I think for the Nashville, I think people are naturally going to pick them to win the Cup because of the regular season that they had and the depth that they have and the star caliber they have at defense, forward, and goalie. But I don't know. It doesn't. I mean, I'm saying all this after one of the worst losses we've had in the playoffs. Like, so it's some of it's perspective, and so maybe if they win tonight, I'll be back thinking positive thoughts again. But you never know.
Now you mentioned earlier about how they really are going to have to win one on the road if they want to win this series. Do you think Nashville has the best home ice advantage in all of hockey?
So last year, I think that they surprised everyone, and I think it appeared that way. I think they've always had a good home ice advantage from the time the team got here. I think people forget about even 10 years ago when the team was struggling to fill the building. The people that were there were loud. I mean, it wasn't a quiet place. I think it's the atmosphere. It's it's the fans. It's kind of the team just has a little bit more pickup when they're at home. But the Jets just have like this another gear that I don't think that most teams have when they're on their home ice. So winning a game in Winnipeg in the playoffs seems to take so much more than any other building that I think that the Predators could play, including last year against the Penguins.
Right.
I mean, it seems maybe even tougher than that because the Penguins, like, you could jump on them. But I don't think their crowd was really as into it throughout. Like, even when they were up like 5-0 or 5-1, I guess it was in game like 5, they just weren't into it the whole time. The Jets fans were into that game from the puck drop. I mean, they just were. It's a different atmosphere. So you got to give them credit. They have a really, really great home ice advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, like, some of the biggest advantages or disadvantages the Predators have in the playoffs right now?
So I think their depth is still pretty good. It's not as good as Winnipeg's, but I think that the fact that they're able to get scoring from different areas, they still have not gotten the scoring from the defense that they need to. I mean, Ryan Ellis, Roman Josi, those guys were excellent scorers in the regular season, and they don't have anything right now.
Yeah.
But I still think it's the depth. They have their top six is, when they're playing well, their top six is very good. I mean, Ryan Johansson and Philip Forsberg are a really solid pairing, and then you've got Victor Arvidsson there. So
yeah.
To answer your question, I guess, I mean, I think their only real strength right now is depth, and because that's one of your strengths, you don't have to just rely on one line or one guy to do everything. Yeah. You can get a decent game from the top line with Johansson, and then if Kyle Turris or Craig Smith or somebody has a fantastic game, then you can pull out a win. You don't have to have A-plus games from everyone, but I guess that's their strength. It's probably not goaltending, even though that was their strength in the regular season.
Yeah.
That has not been great.
I think that is a big strength in a sport like hockey, though, where the playoffs are in a series. It's not just one game and you're done, like in sports like football or something like that. So, like, when you have that depth, you can rely on people to maybe not have their best game every single game and still be able to keep the spirits alive and keep the team alive.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough question to answer because, I mean, after a game like Game 3, it's tough to look around and say, okay, what are we doing well? It's like,
doing good.
I don't know.
Not a whole lot after that one, yeah.
we got off the plane. That was good.
Now, the Preds series with the Avalanche and kind of the beginning of this one, too, they've been very sloppy in regards to taking penalties. Do you think that's going to catch up with them?
It definitely caught up with them in the in Game 3, that's for sure. They've been okay in the first 2 games, even though they took a lot of penalties in the series against the Avalanche. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's already caught up to them. I mean, that third period, they took, I think it was Sissons had a penalty, then Kevin Fiala just tripped somebody, and PK Subban gets a questionable high stick call, and then Pecorino gets this slash call late in the game when the game is tied, and I'm sorry, when the Jets had the lead again, and that penalty just killed them because they were pressing, and then they had to spend 2 more minutes in the penalty kill with less than 5 minutes left. So. Mm-hmm. That was pretty bad, but I think they've been the most penalized team this year, and it definitely caught up with them in Game 3. You just got to stay out of the box tonight and in the rest of the series.
Now, what other series have you been like keeping your eye on these playoffs?
I've pretty much just been watching. I have not paid much attention to Vegas and San Jose or Boston, Tampa Bay. I've really been watching the Capitals and the Penguins. Oh, yeah. Mostly because they've kind of been on the same cycle, like TV viewing cycle as the Predators have been. But I mean, it's fun to root against the Penguins, and
I agree.
With the old coach in Washington, we've got to root for Barry Trotz always, and Alex Ovechkin is a fun guy to root for. So I think I've been watching for that and hoping they can pull that out. That'll be fun.
Well, especially since it's been the same series for like the last 5 years now, the Penguins and the Capitals.
Yeah, exactly. They've got to pull it out eventually. I mean, they've
at some point,
one series in the last 9 years or something.
Yeah.
Shane here's a Devils fan, and he just recently became a Devils fan, and he got to taste the playoffs for the first time, but he had to run into a buzzsaw like the Lightning.
Yeah, that was pretty rough.
That was not fun to watch. We got one
season though, and the Devils look like they definitely have a lot of youth that'll help make that team a playoff team going forward. So that's good.
Yeah, there's some things to look forward to with them. I mean, when you go from dead last in the NHL to playoff bound, you can't be too disappointed with the season.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's pretty crazy, though, just how hockey works like that. You know, you go from dead last to making the playoffs. You see, like, Toronto did it. I know they weren't like they were dead last year, but they weren't a great team. But then they got Austin Matthews and were able to put themselves into playoff contention.
Yeah, and the Avalanche too. And the Avalanche had like their worst season in franchise history last year, and then they turn it around and make the playoffs and almost beat us. So it's like it's pretty crazy. You can turn it around. So I guess we need to look at next year. I guess like I don't know, the Canucks and Coyotes are going to be
good. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. I don't know.
Speaking of the Penguins, though, do you think if the Predators get back to the Stanley Cup and face the Penguins again, do you think PK Subban should pound Sidney Crosby's head into the ice if they meet up again?
Yeah, I think he should do it every game.
I agree. Game. I think that was like one of the most ridiculous things to watch Sidney Crosby do that and not get penalized.
Well, look, the list of things that he got away with in that series, Penguins fans do not want to talk about it. But like, I mean, I don't know if you saw the water bottle incident.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
was ridiculous.
I mean, that kind of blew my mind because I don't think I'd ever seen that. I've watched hockey for 20 years, and I don't think I'd ever seen a player throw not even a stick, not even like a hockey related item, just threw the first bottle thing he could see onto the ice. I just couldn't believe it. And then refs are just play on, normal. I could not believe that. So there's that. There's the punches. I mean, there were so many things that just happened that guy did. I mean, you can't deny he's an incredible player. I mean, he absolutely played an amazing second half of that series. The first two games, the Predators kind of shut him out, but then he took it over in 3, 4, and on. So,
we kind of talked about that earlier on our show too. How you can really tell when these corporations like the NHL and NFL and things like that protect their like money-making players like Sidney Crosby, where if any other player had done that, they'd obviously get penalized. But since it was Sidney Crosby and he brings in a lot of money, they're not going to throw him a penalty because they don't want to make him mad.
So I think that, there's an argument to be made for that. And I think that now, I mean, I can see that PK Subban gets some of that treatment as well. I'm willing to admit that because he's done a few things that have been Sidney Crosby-ish. I don't think it's been that bad, but he definitely does cross that line, and he does get away with it. I don't know why exactly. I guess it's because they know they need to be a star-driven league. I mean, kind of like the NBA. Yeah. The NBA does that. But, so I guess they know that, and they want to continue that. But I also think it's just human nature. I mean, I think when you see a guy like Sidney Crosby do the things on the ice, and then he does something that's completely stupid, you kind of just sort of like, well, that's not normal. I'm sure he didn't mean to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of giving them more of a benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, exactly.
Same reason they'll never call LeBron James for a travel.
Right, exactly.
Going back to that Caps Pens series, did you see that hit on Tom Wilson and they gave him 3 games for it?
I did see that.
Did you think it deserved 3 games?
I thought it could have been more like 2. I think it definitely deserved a suspension.
Mm-hmm.
I would have gone 2, and I think because... So Kadri got 3, right? Nazem Kadri?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Wilson's hit was just a hair more of a regular hockey play than Kadri's was. Kadri was like just trying to injure somebody and wasn't even really involved in the play and just went after someone. Wilson, I guess, just was at least trying to lay down a big hit and just did it the complete wrong way. I mean, I could go either way. I mean, 3 is I don't think it was an egregious call, but I think I probably would have gone 2 on that just because of that, but I don't know.
Almost full speed, that hit looks like it's shoulder to shoulder, too, which it's just really when you slow it down that you see that he caught him in the jaw, and he ended up breaking his jaw and getting a concussion, I think.
Right. Did y'all think he should have been suspended, too? Or?
Yeah, I thought he should have been suspended, but I'm kind of with you. I thought 3 was a little much, but, you can't really argue that when someone breaks their jaw.
I just go on precedent. They've already set that precedent pretty early on with Kadri going 3 games, and that one was pretty bad. I think he deserved that. But then Wilson, I would have predicted 2. But if they're going 3, I guess they're just really trying to ramp up the headshots in the playoffs. Which, by the way, yet another thing that Sidney Crosby did last year that he got 0 games for.
Yeah, exactly. No, because you can't penalize Sidney Crosby.
You brought up Sidney Crosby in the playoffs again, but do you think he should have won the Conn Smythe last year?
Well, now I can't even remember who did win it. I really blanked out after they won the cup.
No, he won it, but I think that Matt Murray was probably the more valuable in the playoffs at least.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think the Conn Smythe is just give it to your perceived best player, regardless of who. So, like right now, for example, if let's see, I think Austin Watson has back to the Predators real quick. So Austin Watson has like 8 points in 9 games, which is like second on the team, maybe, or third on the team.
Right.
But if he if the Predators somehow made it through the Cup final and then won the Cup, Austin Watson is not winning the Conn Smythe.
Right,
This is not like, like the Super Bowl MVP can often be like this, like Malcolm Butler, for example, or like a no-name player who just has a good game. Yeah. Like, it's going to be one of your top players or your goalie. It's going to be one of those two guys. So I guess I'm not surprised.
Do you think Pekka Rinne should win the Vezina?
I think he's already won it. I mean, I think the voting, obviously the voting happened already before the playoffs started, which is really good for him because he's not had a good playoffs. I mean, I think that they're going to look at the four big things. They're going to look at wins. They're going to look at save percentage. They're going to look at goals allowed. And they're going to look at maybe a couple other things. And I think he wins it. Maybe not like running away, but I think he will probably come away with the win.
Yep. I'm wearing my Pekka Rinne jersey right now as we speak. Getting ready.
Oh, really?
Getting ready for Game 4.
Nice. Okay. I mean, I hope he plays better.
Yeah, we need him to.
It wasn't right now.
I mean, it really wasn't entirely his fault. I mean, he had a couple bad goals pretty much in every game. What I was surprised most with was just how he lost his mind at the end of that game with the slash.
Right.
I mean, he just does not do that often, and he was obviously just very frustrated with how the defense was playing in front of him, and you just don't see him lose his cool like that very much. But
I remember after that, I think it would have been Game 4, I think, in Colorado. The shot map of where all of Colorado's shots came from was less than 10 feet in front of the net.
Yeah.
And that's just, like, you can't blame all those on Pekka Rinne. Yeah, that's got to go back on your defense.
Yeah, he's getting help there.
Yeah, I definitely don't. I mean, I think he has, like, a 900 save percentage in the playoffs, which is not good, but you can't just look at that and not, and ignore where the shots are coming from. I mean, in the Colorado Avalanche series, he had a lot of tough shots to deal with. And so far in the Winnipeg game, especially in Game 3, he was just battling constantly with guys. Now, he did do a couple things that he has reverted back to some of his old sort of just relying on his athleticism, kind of overplaying the puck. He's been doing a lot of that, and that's been kind of frustrating to watch because he wasn't that way all season. So if he can just calm down a little bit, just ease off the anger, maybe just kind of go into his zen moment for a little bit and just find his game again, he'll be okay because he's played well against the Jets before, but I don't know. He needs to find that zone again.
Shane, you got anything else?
No, I'm good. Do you have any Stanley Cup final predictions?
Boy, well, so I my original pick actually was Tampa. I picked Tampa Bay to win the whole thing, even before the playoffs started. In fact, I think I picked them before the season started. But I think I'm going to stick to that. I think that Tampa's going to beat. I think Washington's going to beat Pittsburgh. I think they're going to pull it off.
Okay,
and I think Tampa's going to beat Washington. And I think it's going to be Tampa and Vegas. I think that's what's going to happen.
Ooh, that'd be cool to see.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know really what makes me pick that. I just, for some reason, think it's going to be Tampa and Vegas. Yeah, just got a feeling.
I'd like to see James Neal in the finals again.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still pretty bitter about that, but
oh man, earlier in this episode we talk about the expansion draft rules and how they just rob teams blind. But
I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it's having being a fan of an expansion team that it took 5 years to even make the playoffs, 6 years, and they were never really competitive in those 6 years or whatever it was. It's frustrating because I think that Bettman just completely miscalculated how this expansion protection should work, and now he's going to double down on it with Seattle, and he's just like, oh, it's going to be the same rules.
Yeah.
So I guess it's going to be Vegas and Seattle in the Western Conference Final for the next 6 years.
We talked about that too because they keep calling themselves the Golden Misfits or whatever. They're not a bunch of misfits ragtag players. These are guys with serious experience.
Yeah,
that are very good at hockey.
Yeah, think about it. If you take, go back 3 years ago. Take the sixth best forward, or I guess the seventh or eighth best forward off of every team, and then also the fourth best defenseman. So you get a top 4 defenseman, and you get a top 6 or top 9 forward. That's pretty good. And also you got one of the best goalies in the league.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's a recipe to make a really good team. And think about all the teams that kind of go on cup runs because that sort of unnamed, no-name forward just all of a sudden plays on the top 6 and just has a crazy series. Jake Gensel is a good example. That guy came out of nowhere and all of a sudden he's scoring a goal a game. So
Omaha kid.
yeah,
Alex, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
sure thing. Yeah, it was fun.
Big thanks to Alex for coming on the show and discussing some Predators hockey. If you're a big Preds fan like I am, make sure to go check out his show, the Forecheck podcast, on iTunes.
So, fellas, let's get to our final thoughts. Kieran, you start us off.
Okay, I'll go first. Always remember that you are absolutely unique, just like everyone else. That's a quote from Margaret Mead. I don't know who that is.
Wise words, Margaret.
She probably goes by Peggy, I'd say.
Embrace debate.
She might.
Is Peggy a legitimate nickname?
I think so. I think it is.
I think there's bias.
That's why we're embracing the debate, Tucker. All right, I'll go first. I said, go to bed, you'll feel better in the morning is the human version of, did you turn it off and turn it back on again?
That's true.
That is true. I do that every night.
Toby, you got something?
Yeah, so a team that has not turned it off yet, the Arizona Diamondbacks, they have lost pretty much their entire roster to injury for the most part, but the starting pitchers that they've plugged and played have been amazing. They haven't lost a series yet. They're the best team in all of the National League. So shout out Arizona Diamondbacks. We haven't gotten them on the podcast yet. We've been busy talking about the Red Sox and the Royals' failures, but the Arizona Diamondbacks team to watch in the National League. Hopefully they keep the Dodgers out of the playoffs.
My dudes.
My final thought has to do with the Royals. The Royals on the road to minus 376 are actually on pace to break the modern record for worst run differential in a season, minus 349 by the 1932 Red Sox. And the Orioles, minus 312, also would wind up at negative 300 plus minus at this rate. So there's tanking, and then there's the 2018 Royals. That's from Jason Stark of The Athletic.
Not a good look. Not a great look for us.
No, not a good one. That's not something you want on your team, is to be literally the worst team ever.
Hey, silver lining, though, they're already doing ticket deals. They had that Bo Jackson ticket deal, I don't know what it was, like 16 games or something for like $20.
Yeah.
Even brighter side, if you go to the game and buy nosebleed tickets, odds are you'll be sitting ground level by the third inning.
Yeah.
If you watch a Royals home game, there is literally nobody there. It's a good thing they paint the seats blue.
It doesn't fool anybody, though.
Yeah. That'll do it for this week's episode of Nosebleed Radio. For Kieran Brennan, Toby Todd, and Shane Miller, I'm Tucker Franklin. Thanks for listening. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at NosebleedsKnow. Like us on Facebook, Nosebleed Knowledge. We'll see ya.